You've thought about it more than you'd admit. That moment when everything changes, when the investment finally pays off, when the business takes off, when the inheritance arrives, when the numbers in your account cross into territory you've only imagined. You've pictured what you'd do. Maybe you'd quit your job in spectacular fashion, wait for the exact moment your boss says something condescending, and walk out with a smile. Maybe you'd finally buy that thing you've been eyeing for years. Maybe you'd help your parents, pay off your siblings' debts, surprise the people who believed in you when nobody else did. But here's what else you've pictured, even if you won't say it out loud. Telling people. Not everyone, just certain people. The ones who doubted you. The ones who said you were wasting your time. The ones who looked at you like you'd never amount to anything. There's a version of getting rich that lives in your head, where those people finally see what you've become. That fantasy is natural. It's human. Almost everyone who's ever struggled financially has imagined the moment when struggle ends and vindication begins. But that fantasy will destroy you if you act on it. This video is about what actually happens when people get rich and can't stop talking about it. The friendships that evaporate, the family members who transform, the strangers who suddenly appear with urgent needs, the peace of mind that vanishes the moment your success becomes public knowledge, the wealthy people who stay wealthy, the ones who build lasting freedom instead of temporary fame, almost all share one habit: they tell no one. They practice what's sometimes called stealth wealth. They get rich without anyone noticing. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why they do it. And if you're serious about building wealth that lasts, you'll probably do it too. Let's start with what happens when you don't stay quiet. In 2002, a man named Jack Whitaker won $314 million from the Powerball. At the time, the largest jackpot ever won by a single ticket. He was already a successful businessman worth around $15 million. The lottery win should have been a blessing on top of an already comfortable life. Jack did the opposite of staying quiet. He became famous for his generosity, giving money to strangers who asked, donating millions to his church, buying houses and cars for friends. He seemed like a genuinely good person who wanted to share his fortune. Within a few years, his wife divorced him. Friends abandoned him. His granddaughter, whom he'd spoiled with money and access, died from an overdose. Thieves broke into his car multiple times, once stealing $545,000 in cash he'd inexplicably left inside. He was sued repeatedly. His businesses failed. He later said publicly that he wished he'd torn up the ticket. Jack Whitaker had more money than most people will see in 10 lifetimes. It destroyed him anyway, not because of the money itself, but because everyone knew about it. Here's another story that's harder to hear. Billy Bob Harrell Jr. won $31 million in the Texas lottery in 1997. He was a 47-year-old Home Depot stock clerk barely getting by, convinced the money would let him support his family. After becoming a local celebrity, Billy Bob couldn't say no to anyone. Friends needed help. Family needed help. His church needed help. Strangers approached him constantly with requests he felt obligated to honor. His spending became uncontrollable. Houses, cars, donations, loans that would never be repaid. 8 months after winning, his wife divorced him. Within 2 years, he was completely broke and back in debt. He told his financial advisor that winning the lottery was the worst thing that ever happened to him. Billy Bob Harrell ended his own life in 1999. He went from struggling to rich to dead in less than 3 years, and the attention he received played a central role in every stage of that decline. These aren't isolated cases. Studies of lottery winners consistently find elevated rates of bankruptcy, divorce, depression, substance abuse, and early death compared to the general population. The money itself isn't the problem. The publicity is. The first reason to stay quiet about wealth is the most practical. Privacy protects your physical security. The FBI recently warned professional athletes about organized burglary rings, specifically targeting wealthy, high-profile individuals. These aren't random crimes of opportunity. They're planned operations by sophisticated groups who research schedules, identify when targets will be away, and execute coordinated break-ins. Professional athletes are obvious targets because their schedules are public and their wealth is assumed. But anyone who makes their financial success visible becomes a potential mark. In 2025 and 2026, home security companies reported significant increases in targeted burglaries where the victim's wealth was identified through social media posts. Not just photos of expensive purchases, but location tags at luxury hotels, check-ins at high-end restaurants, vacation photos that confirm the home is empty. When you broadcast your financial success, you're giving potential criminals a research file. They know what you have, they know where you live. They can often figure out when you're not home. The information you share becomes the blueprint for your own victimization. Beyond physical security, there's legal exposure. The more publicly wealthy you appear, the more attractive you become as a lawsuit target. Frivolous lawsuits against people perceived as rich are common because plaintiffs assume the target will settle rather than fight. Your visible wealth becomes a liability that invites claims you'd never face if you appeared ordinary. None of this means you need to live in fear. It means you need to understand that privacy has real value, value that compounds over time as your wealth grows. Beyond security, staying quiet protects you from something more insidious, the transformation of your relationships. When people know you have money, the dynamic changes. Sometimes obviously, sometimes subtly, but almost always in ways that diminish the relationship. Friends who never asked for anything start mentioning financial problems. Family members who were content with their lives suddenly have urgent needs only you can solve. Acquaintances who barely knew you before become intensely interested in reconnecting. Some of these people have genuine needs you might want to help with, but many are simply responding to opportunity. They see resources and position themselves to access those resources. The friendship becomes transactional, even if neither party consciously intends that. Here's what's worse. You can never be certain which is which. When your wealthy status is known, every interaction carries a question mark. Is this person genuinely interested in me or in what I can provide? Did they reach out because they care or because they need something? That uncertainty corrodes relationships over time. You become suspicious of kindness. You second-guess invitations. You wonder about motives constantly. The wealth that was supposed to improve your life instead makes authentic connection harder to trust. People who practice stealth wealth avoid this entirely. When nobody knows what you have, the relationships you form are based on who you are rather than what you're worth. The friends you make actually like you. The connections you build are genuine. That's worth more than the momentary satisfaction of people knowing you've made it. There's another dynamic at play that most people don't anticipate. Success triggers other people's insecurities. You'd expect friends and family to be happy for you when things go well. And most of them are, at least partially, at least initially. But almost everyone who watches someone else succeed experiences a complicated internal response. Even your closest friends, the ones who genuinely love you and want good things for you, will have some version of this thought. What would my life look like if that happened to me? Why didn't that happen to me? What does their success mean about my life? This isn't malicious. It's human nature. We compare ourselves to people around us. When someone in our immediate circle experiences dramatic success, we can't help measuring our own position against theirs. That comparison often breeds resentment, even when the person doesn't want to feel resentful. They might not act on it consciously, but the relationship subtly shifts. Your success becomes a reminder of what they haven't achieved. Your presence triggers feelings they'd rather not have. The more you talk about your success, the more you amplify this effect. Every mention of your investments, your purchases, your freedom becomes another data point for comparison. Every visible marker of your wealth is another reminder of the gap between your life and theirs. People will congratulate you publicly while competing with you privately. They'll celebrate your wins out loud while hoping you stumble. Not because they're bad people, because that's how human psychology works when confronted with someone else's success. Staying quiet protects both them and you. They don't have to manage uncomfortable emotions around you. You don't have to wonder if their support is genuine. The friendship stays about the friendship instead of becoming about relative status. In professional settings, visible wealth creates its own problems. If your coworkers or colleagues know you're wealthy, You become an outsider, regardless of how you behave. They assume you don't really need to work, that you're just doing this for entertainment while they're struggling to pay bills. Your opinions carry different weight, sometimes more, sometimes less, but always filtered through the lens of your financial position. This is especially true if you've built wealth while working alongside people who haven't. The colleague who's been at the same company, at the same level, for the same amount of time, but who didn't invest wisely or build side income, will have complicated feelings about your success. Those feelings will affect your working relationship, whether either of you wants them to. Appearing wealthy can also put you at disadvantage in negotiations. Contractors and service providers adjust their pricing based on perceived ability to pay. The quote for home repairs, the fee for professional services, the price of anything negotiable, all of these tend to inflate when the other party believes you have money. There's an old saying that rich people get charged more for the same services. It's not always true, but it's true often enough that protecting information about your finances has direct monetary value. Beyond these practical concerns, there's something deeper about what staying quiet does for your internal experience. When you talk about your wealth constantly, you become your wealth. Your identity fuses with your financial position. Your self-worth becomes tied to your net worth. Every conversation about money reinforces the idea that your value as a person comes from your account balance. This is psychologically dangerous. Money can disappear, investments can fail, circumstances can change. If your identity is built on wealth, any threat to that wealth becomes a threat to your sense of self. People who practice stealth wealth maintain separation between who they are and what they have. Their financial position is a private matter, something they manage and appreciate, but not something that defines them. When they interact with the world, they're evaluated on their character, their ideas, their presence, not their portfolio. That separation provides stability that visible wealth can never offer. It grounds you in qualities that can't be taken away by market crashes or business failures or unexpected expenses. Staying quiet about money isn't just a strategy. It's a way of maintaining psychological health. There's also something powerful about what you learn when you talk less. When you're sharing information about yourself, your success, your money, your achievements, you're repeating what you already know. You're not gaining anything. You're just broadcasting. When you're quiet and listening, you're learning what you don't know. You're observing how people behave when they don't know your financial position. You're gathering information about their motivations, their character, their trustworthiness. Silence lets you read the room. It helps you spot people's actual motives rather than the motives they'd display if they knew you were wealthy. It gives you data that loud people never get because loud people are too busy performing to observe. The older I get, the more I realize that wisdom builds in the pauses, not in the performances. You don't need to prove you're successful. You don't need to demonstrate your knowledge or your wealth or your status. You need to keep your ears open long enough to catch the truth between other people's words. When you're quiet about your money, you're actually building a strategic advantage. You see people as they really are, not as they'd present themselves to someone with resources they want to access. Here's something else that happens when you stay quiet. You avoid the pressure of maintaining appearances. Once you've established yourself as wealthy in people's minds, there's an expectation to maintain that image. The house you buy needs to impress people who now expect you to live impressively. The car you drive needs to match the status you've claimed. The gifts you give, the trips you take, the lifestyle you project, all of it needs to align with the wealthy identity you've broadcast. This creates a treadmill. You're not spending to satisfy your own preferences anymore. You're spending to meet other people's expectations of what your life should look like. And those expectations only grow over time. Think about what happens if you buy a large house because you've told everyone you're rich. Now you need to furnish it appropriately. You need landscapers, cleaners, maintenance staff. You need to host events that justify the space. You need to keep up appearances for neighbors, friends, family, who all expect your lifestyle to match your stated wealth. If you attend weddings, people expect larger gifts from you. If you're part of a church or charity, people expect larger donations. If friends experience hardship, people expect you to solve their problems. The expectations never stop growing because you've established yourself as someone who can always afford more. Staying quiet eliminates all of this. You live according to your own standards, not according to what others expect from someone at your financial level. Your spending decisions are yours alone. The pressure to perform wealth disappears because nobody knows there's wealth to perform. So what should you actually do when you get rich? Tell almost no one. That's the starting point. The people who need to know are your spouse, your attorney, your financial advisor, and possibly your accountant. Everyone else can remain unaware indefinitely. This doesn't mean lying. If someone directly asks about your finances, you can deflect without being dishonest. "I'm doing fine," covers a lot of ground. "I don't really discuss money," is a complete answer. You're not obligated to share financial information with anyone just because they're curious. Avoid conspicuous consumption, at least initially. The new car, the expensive watch, the luxury vacation, all of these signal wealth whether you talk about it or not. If you want to stay invisible, your lifestyle needs to remain relatively normal. That doesn't mean living in deprivation. It means avoiding the purchases that serve primarily to communicate status rather than provide genuine value. Be careful on social media. Every post is a data point. Photos of expensive restaurants, luxury travel, new purchases, these accumulate into a picture of your financial position, even if you never mention money directly. Consider what you're revealing with every share. When family or friends ask for money, have a clear policy decided in advance. One approach: if someone genuinely needs help and you can afford to help, give them the money as a gift with no expectation of repayment. But make clear this is a one-time thing. They don't get to come back. This preserves the relationship without establishing yourself as an ongoing source of funds. Another approach: help in ways that aren't financial. Connect them with job opportunities. Help them think through their situation. Provide advice and support without opening your wallet. Sometimes what people really need isn't money. They've just framed their problem financially because that's the obvious solution. Don't lend money to people you want to keep in your life. Loans create debtor dynamics that poison relationships. If you can afford to give it, give it. If you can't afford to give it, don't lend it. The middle ground of lending almost always ends badly for the relationship, regardless of whether the loan gets repaid. There's a concept worth understanding called the freedom figure. Work out exactly how much annual income you'd need to live the life you want. Then multiply that number by 25. The result is the amount you need invested to generate that income indefinitely through returns, never touching the principal, living only on what your money produces. If you need $100,000 annually, you need $2.5 million invested. If you need $200,000, you need $5 million. The 25 multiplier is based on a 4% safe withdrawal rate. Historically, you can withdraw 4% from a diversified portfolio indefinitely without depleting the principal. This matters because it changes how you think about sudden wealth. If you receive a large sum, the question isn't, "What can I buy with this?" The question is this enough to generate the income I need forever? Most lottery winners and sudden wealth recipients think in terms of spending the principal. They see $5 million and start listing $5 million worth of purchases. Within years, often months, the money is gone. Wealthy people who stay wealthy think in terms of preserving the principal and living on returns. They see $5 million and calculate, that generates $200,000 annually at 4%. Can I live on $200,000 per year? If yes, I never have to touch the $5 million. If no, I need to grow the principal before I start spending. This mindset, never spend the principal, only the interest, is the difference between temporary wealth and permanent freedom. It's also why staying quiet matters so much. When you tell people about sudden wealth, they help you spend the principal. They have ideas for how you should use it. They have needs that require it. The pressure to deplete your capital comes from every direction. When nobody knows, that pressure disappears. You can quietly invest, quietly wait for returns, quietly build the money tree that produces income forever instead of cutting it down for temporary firewood. If you're watching this video, you care about building wealth. Maybe you're already on the path. Maybe you're just starting. Either way, there's a version of your future where the numbers in your accounts cross into life-changing territory. When that happens, you'll have a choice. You can tell people, enjoy the validation, accept the congratulations, reveal your success to everyone who doubted you. Or you can stay quiet. The people who stay quiet keep more of what they build. They maintain relationships that are actually about them rather than their money. They avoid the vultures and scammers and opportunists who descend on visible wealth. They preserve their psychological health by keeping their identity separate from their net worth. They see people as they really are because those people don't know there's anything to gain by performing. The satisfaction of telling people wears off quickly. The problems created by telling people last indefinitely. Real wealth is waking up every day and deciding how to spend your time. It's having enough money that you never have to do things you don't want to do. It's freedom and security and options. None of that requires anyone else knowing about it. In fact, all of it is easier to maintain when nobody knows. Everything I've described in this video is financial literacy applied to the psychology of wealth. Most people never think about this. They imagine getting rich as the end of their problems, the moment when everything becomes easy. They don't anticipate the new problems that wealth creates, the relationships it transforms, the attention it attracts, the pressure it generates. Understanding these dynamics before you have money is enormously valuable. It means you can build habits now that will serve you later. You can start practicing discretion before discretion becomes critical. You can develop the psychological separation between your identity and your net worth before your net worth becomes significant. I made a complete breakdown of financial literacy that covers all of this, not just the stealth wealth principles, but the entire framework for how money actually works, how to build it, how to protect it, how to make it serve your life instead of consuming it. If this video changed how you think about wealth and visibility, that video will change how you think about every aspect of your financial life. Because the truth is, getting rich is only half the challenge. Staying rich, and staying happy while rich, requires understanding that most people never develop. The loudest people in any room rarely have the most. The quiet ones are the ones who are actually building something. The quiet ones are the ones who keep what they build. When you get rich, tell no one, and then watch what becomes possible.